Endo Warriors, welcome back to K&K Real Talk. We are so happy to have you here. If this is your very first episode, welcome. I am Kenny King, holistic health and wellness coach and transformation life coach focused on helping women reclaim their bodies and thrive with endo. So Kristen, the other half of K&K, Kristen McCrovey, she is the founder of Endometriosis and Me, which is most likely how you found this video if you're watching, and podcast if you're listening. So she's not going to be on with us today because we have a fantastic guest that I am so excited to have today. So I'd love to welcome Dr. Amber Horsley. We are chatting about cupping today. Dr. Horsley, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. This is so exciting. Such a pleasure.
Yes, it is such a pleasure having you here. And I'm really excited about talking about cupping because this is something that I've heard about. I have yet to try. And first of all, I just can't wait to try it. But I'm so excited to learn more and to share this information about what it is. So first, though, could you just share a little bit more about you and how your clinic takes an integrative or holistic approach to medicine?
Perfect. Yeah. And so our clinic, we truly believe that in our world, in our society, we are surrounded by chronic disease. And when it comes to chronic disease, it's never one thing that got you there. So everyone's like, what's that magic thing? What was the last step that caused this disease? It's not. It's a multifactorial approach. There's so many things that factor into chronic disease. And so in our office, we think it's important to look at all of those. So we look at the body structurally, neurologically, and nutritionally, because everything has an impact on that. So we take a more like functional nutrition approach, like how is your gut functioning? And therefore, are you assimilating your nutrients to feed your organs, feed and balance your hormones, all of that aspect. So we do a lot of different blood work through there. We're doctors of chiropractic. And so we look structurally, how is your body aligned? Are your nerves able to function appropriately? And we also do acupuncture to help to balance the nervous system that way. And so as doctors of chiropractic, acupuncturists, and functional nutritionists, we can look at the body from a much more holistic approach. And doing it that way, we've seen amazing results on patients that have lost hope because they've been in that medical wheel over and over and over and just had medications as bandages. And so our whole thing is let's be Sherlock Holmes and discover what's that root cause of what's going on in your health life.
Oh, I love that so much. Let's be Sherlock Holmes, and hearing you say, it's so inspiring to hear all the different facets and factors that come in, because as a coach, this is an area I work into in terms of, okay, what's at the root and how can we make sure that you're following through on these protocols that your medical team and your care practitioners are bringing forward so that you can heal and create just a better quality of life overall. And so, I just have to say, though, I don't think most people think chiropractic care and think like functional nutrition and cupping and acupuncture and like all these things. And so I just love that there's such a what's that word? Like the discipline or in the disciplines, like multidisciplinary or whatever. You know that word I'm talking about?
Yeah, integrated approach, integrated practitioner, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so it's so fascinating for me because most people, when they hear the word doctor of chiropractic or chiropractor, just those words, they normally think it's just about like
neck and back. Yep, exactly. They think neck, back pain, period. Yeah. And there's so much to that. And that's the beautiful thing with chiropractic as a profession is that there's so many different specialties as well, like where you would go to a specialist in your medical doctor field. You would go to an OBGYN or you'd go to a sports doctor. You'd go to an ear, nose, and throat doctor. And chiropractic, there's also similar specialties. There's pediatrics, there's neurology, there's nutrition, there's all these other ones. And so in our office, it's like, well, why pick only one? Why go for all of them? Because they're all interconnected. And that's the big thing, is once you start looking into natural holistic medicine, you realize you can't stop at one thing, because there is no end. They're all connected. The entire human body, your brain, your gut, everything's connected.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of this really funny, it was actually like a church sermon I heard years and years ago that was just about, it was about the difference between the way men's brains and women's brains work. But the thing that stuck out was a woman's brain is kind of like a plate of spaghetti. Like you can everything's connected, everything's touching, and you can drag a noodle around, and before you know it, you're on a totally different noodle. You didn't even know you switched noodles.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's not just the brain. It's like, well, our whole systems work that way, like the whole body, the mind, body, spirit. And so taking this approach, where you're looking at the multiple factors and you're looking at integrative medicine and all of these things, it's like, it's so important, especially with women with endometriosis or women with just overall reproductive health challenges. And even when you take that out of it, just a functioning human, there are so many facets to it. So it's really amazing to take a step back and look at that interconnectedness. And it's fascinating. We're complex creatures. So it makes sense that sometimes we go to one specialist for one thing and we might handle a symptom, but we could be missing the root.
Exactly.
Missing those pieces. Yeah. So it's so amazing. It's inspiring too. It really is. So I'd love to hear more about, for those of us who haven't experienced it, what the heck is cupping?
Yeah, it's definitely something that's much, well, I would say newer, and it's newer in the United States. However, I mean, this is a very ancient technique that's been done for 2,000 years plus. I mean, it's been out there for a long, long period of time. But I think we can probably say that Michael Phelps or some of these more athletes have really been the ones to bring it to light. And so that's where I'll start, is what does it look like? So cupping, if you've seen Michael Phelps, seen the Olympics, he had all these random weird circular splotches all over him. And you're like, what random disease does this man have? That is what cupping was, the result of cupping. So cupping itself is where you use different glasses, little round glasses that sit on top of the skin. They can either be glass, plastic, bamboo, any of those different ones. And what happens is that you take fire, herbs, suction, anything like that, and you use that to put on top of the skin and bring suction up the skin up into the cup. So what's happening is that you are bringing blood flow to the area. So the whole thing with cupping is you are moving blood. You're bringing blood flow to different localized area of your skin. So the cup itself, either with fire, so if you use fire, you would light a little match underneath of the cup, therefore creating a vacuum under the cup that when it's put on the skin, it will pull the skin up into the cup. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
So that's how you would use for glass. And then now there's plastic, where there's just plastic cups you put on the skin, and there's a little suction gun, if you will, that you have a couple pumps, and that will just pull air out of that cup, therefore creating more pressure and pulling the skin up into it. Sounds very technical and kind of strange, but that's what cupping is it is just bringing a vacuum type suction to the skin, which dilates blood vessels right underneath that area.
Okay, so we're moving the blood.
Yes.
That's what's happening. So could you share a little bit about what is the benefit of moving the blood? And what might cupping be used for?
Exactly. And so the whole thing and why a benefit comes from cupping is moving the blood, because blood is your body's highway. It carries all of your oxygen, your hormones, your different healing mediators, all of these different things. So when you are bringing blood flow to an area, you are bringing all those different things to start that healing process, create new cells. Otherwise, if you have injuries or muscle tension, things like that, you're able to bring different nutrients in there to help to relieve muscle tension, to help to heal scar tissues or things like that. And so that's why moving blood around is so very important, is because blood literally is the master of healing throughout your body. And so that's what cupping does. And why cupping lasts so much longer, or why it's beneficial to have that mark, is that that bruise that is left over has excess blood that's kept there for a while, so the healing will last longer, even after the cup is taken off.
Wow. Okay, so can it be used on any part of the body?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Of course, classically it's used on either your trunk, so your chest, your back, your arms, your legs, but I mean, you can use it on your hands and your feet and your face. And I've heard that face cupping is becoming much more popular. I haven't done it myself on any of my patients or anything like that, but it's becoming much more popular as well. Any place that you have a flat surface that you can create that suction, you can do cupping.
So this is so interesting to me because it reminds me of my time as a personal trainer.
Yeah.
And whenever there would be offering support to somebody with an injury, or offering or having specifically in a different way, specifically helping move the blood throughout the body to flood the area with nutrients.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same premise. It makes so much sense.
Yeah.
The way that you're explaining it. So what is the difference between wet and dry cupping?
Yeah. So dry cupping is kind of the classic cupping that most people would think of. As I've said before, explained, where you have that suction that suctions the skin at that local area. And so that would be the end of dry cupping, where you would have a cup on for anywhere from 3 to 10 minutes, depending on what your goal was for treatment. Oftentimes it's around 3 minutes, so you don't typically go that much longer. And then after that therapy was done, you would be done with those cups at that location. Now with wet cupping is that you would do 2 rounds of the suction, because you would do the first cup to bring blood flow to the area, to dilate all those blood vessels. Then you would take that cup off and you would take a sterilized knife or something like that and make a couple incisions right underneath where that cup was. So the whole thing with wet cupping, let me take a step back, is that you're using blood. You're literally going to be bloodletting. So the old therapies of bloodletting, where you're cutting the body and having it bleed for therapeutic reasons, that's wet cupping. So you bring the blood to the surface, you make those little incisions, and then you put the cup back on again and literally suction out blood from your body. And so that is wet cupping. And so the theory behind it is that a lot of toxins and stagnation and things like that occurs in the blood. And so if you take that blood out, then you're rebalancing the system and getting rid of those toxins. That's more that the ancient view of what bloodletting does and how wet cupping benefits the body.
Okay, yeah, and that does actually sound familiar. Why might somebody choose like wet cupping over dry cupping, or what? Like, where would that decision be made?
Yeah. We honestly don't do much wet cupping in our office, just because of things that may come with it, of course. So whenever you're doing wet cupping, of course, you have to be very careful, and you sterilize everything afterward and put on bandages and things like that. But people would perhaps choose wet cupping more if they feel like they have more of a toxic overload, or if they have all those other things to help to clear that through the blood. However, there's several different techniques you can even get from dry cupping with that detoxification process, without even doing the bloodletting. So it comes into personal preference as well. And I would talk to different practitioners that do cupping and their preference on wet versus dry and what they've seen as the benefit for that patient. The thing with cupping in general is that, yes, it's really good by itself, but cupping is pretty much always done in conjunction with other therapies, with nutrition, with chiropractic, with acupuncture, especially with acupuncture, to get that additive effect.
I can see how that, because I have done acupuncture, and I could see how the two of those could really go well together. So, so it sounds like dry cupping is very, very effective. That's more of the, or very, it's a common, more common. And that if you're interested in really discovering which one is best for you, maybe talk to a few different practitioners. And if you're going to be doing wet cupping, just because of the different things that come with that, make sure you're going to a practitioner that is very sterile and has, has been doing this for a while. And
because in general, cupping itself is very safe. Like dry cupping, super, super safe. You may want to, like, if you have fragile capillaries or any blood type issues, definitely let your doctor or practitioner know, because you're bringing blood flow, you're affecting the different blood vessels in the area. But with wet cupping, there is a lot more to it, because you have to make sure that everything's sterile, things like that, because you are literally opening the body up, and so bacteria, infections, things like that can occur. And so you want to make sure that you're with a trained medical practitioner.
Yes, that makes perfect sense. So what are your thoughts on cupping for pain management? And do you have any thoughts on other ways cupping might just in general support the body related to pain management, digestive health, or just some of those aspects?
So classically, hands down, cupping is mostly used for pain. If you were to look at research studies or all these different things, about 85 to 90% of cupping is used for pain. Either joint pain, back pain, arthritic pain, any of those different things, or headaches. So that's classically what cupping is used for. But now, especially, when would cupping be beneficial? If you have, aching back pain that's really relieved by pressure, like if a massage really helps, or if any of those things, then cupping would probably be a better benefit, because you're increasing pressure in that area by using the cupping, by bringing in blood. So if pressure helps to reduce the pain, that's going to help in that region. So that's one thing I would look at. Also, it's just, as we said before, you're bringing blood flow to the area, which is going to, if you have muscle tension or muscle spasms, things like that, bring more blood flow is going to help to smooth out over all the different muscles and the connection down below, increase blood flow, as well as if you have an injury or something like that, in the blood, you'll have more different cells that create new tissues, new blood vessels. So you actually have what's called angiogenesis. So more blood cell creation at that location as well. And so it just speeds healing and muscle relaxation for that moment right there, as well as when the cup is taken off, because of the new blood vessels that are formed.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. That's because one of the things that I've listened to some women with endometriosis who've said their pain has been helped with cupping, and even which it makes sense, because earlier you explained how the transporting of the blood is the highway, and those nutrients, it helps transport, the hormones and all of that. And so getting that movement, it was also mentioned that it was helping with even acne. And just like that, detoxification and cleansing, because that is a very common thing, first of all, for women with endometriosis, for their hormones are normally need some support. They need some balancing for sure. And so many of them have cystic acne, or just different types of acne, different types of also just stagnation in the body. And so when I was thinking about it and trying to understand, well, what is cupping and how does it work, it's making a lot of sense, because there's so much tension and stress that comes from being in chronic pain, that as this blood flow gets to move and allows for those nutrients to be transported, and the areas of maybe even adhesions, the areas of where, the stuckness in the organs, they get to relax, the muscles get to relax. So it can, I'm hearing that it can just generate also this relaxation approach in the muscles and in the system overall, which helps reduce some of that inflammation, that tightness, and that stress that's happening internally.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. And that's one of the big things. So like if you look at ancient Chinese medicine, a lot of their views on what causes menstrual cramps, PMS, endometriosis, a lot of these things is due to blood stagnation. And so therefore, that's where cupping would really help, especially along where the nerves that feed your uterus and all those in your low back, as well as even on the abdomen, potentially being careful not to necessarily do right during your period, but around that area to kind of just help to stimulate blood flow will help with that stagnation that is oftentimes seen with endometriosis. One thing I also wanted to mention is that I'm glad you talked about adhesions and breaking up adhesions, because cupping, so in dry cupping as well, there's a couple of variations. There's something called mobile cupping as well. Have you ever heard of mobile cupping?
No.
No. Okay. So classically with cupping, you would just put the cup on a part of the body and it would sit there until you take it off. Well, mobile cupping is where you use coconut oil or something like that and have a nice base over the entire skin as a lubricant. And then you move the cup with the suction around the body. And so while that suction is being moved, you're moving it around. And so the skin's literally being pulled up all over your body, breaking up adhesions all through your back or your arm or wherever it's at. And so it's bringing blood flow to that entire area and breaking up all those adhesions.
Yeah, wow, because that sounds to me, so what happens with, firstly, so many of these women are having surgeries, surgery after surgery, and scar tissue adhesions build up. Sometimes their organs are starting to like stick together and attach. And so it sounds like this process, that mobile process, could be a great way to assist with breaking up of some of the adhesions, assist with just generating some of that movement and that blood flow in the area to reduce that rigidity really within the body, because so much of that is creating that pain. I had another woman I was speaking with recently who her doctor just palpitated, like her, did I say that right? Palpitated. I'm obviously not a doctor. But just her ovary, and was like, oh my gosh, I think you have an ovarian cyst, yada, yada. Well, what it turned out to be was just scar tissue and adhesion from surgery, from her past surgery. And it was painful. Like, it was painful to the touch. It caused her to wince. And so I'm just hearing so many benefits of this being something that some bodies can really respond to and assist with taking the edge off of the pain, reducing the pain, eliminating the pain. Just, everybody is different in how they respond, but that sounds amazing. I can't wait to try it, actually.
Yeah. And honestly, I love mobile cupping. It feels like a massage. Like, if you don't have as many, even if you do have adhesions, but nothing terrible, it actually feels really, really good. We have a set at my house that I will do my husband. He's just like, please, just let's do mobile cupping tonight. Because it's like a massage. And so you get the added benefit of all of the blood flow to the area and breaking adhesions, and it feels good. So, but yeah, and that's where it's so fascinating, because it's such a great benefit in itself. But especially in my office, or I would suggest anyone that's doing mobile cupping to combine it with dietary things, help to decrease inflammation throughout the body, as well as with acupuncture to stimulate more nerve stimulation at those areas. There's a lot of things acupuncture can really do to help with endometriosis and other different infertility or things like that, as well as other different techniques. So doing all of it together additively is going to exponentially make the healing process faster, as opposed to doing any one technique. Because again, it's never just one thing that got you there. So the more techniques that you can do from a natural approach, the more benefit that you would see from it.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I absolutely agree. I think one of the things that happens when we receive a diagnosis sometimes is it comes across like we suddenly believe, and I know so many women with endometriosis or PCOS or just fibromyalgia or any,
Sure.
condition believe this is my life now. Like
Mhm.
I'm sick and this is my life and this is my pain and nothing's going to change. This is just it. And that's what we're here for,
Yeah.
is to say, absolutely not. Absolutely not. There is better is always possible.
Yeah.
However, that doesn't mean that it's like there's one magic cure-all pill that you're going to be able to take one time and then everything's just magically different.
Yeah.
It's these daily choices and these, our habits and our journey and learning how can I nourish my body? How can I take care of my body? And what is going to help me on my journey? And what things can I put together to maximize my quality of life?
Exactly. And that's the big thing, is that everyone's different. And
Mhm.
that's why in our office, it's not, I mean, yes, I do want to know what your diagnosis is, but I really don't care, because all a diagnosis is a collection of symptoms. And so even if you have endometriosis and I do, and someone else does, everyone's gonna have different symptoms, because our bodies are different. And so it doesn't matter what the diagnosis is, because I'm going to treat that body and help support that body's functioning to get it to health. And so that will be different for one person versus another, based on what's the root cause of their symptoms that we would go through in an exam and things like that. And so that's where it's so important to look at the mindset and have hope, because any diagnosis is not a death sentence. It's just okay, we have to make a couple changes, but let's do this from empowering and joyful light, as opposed to condemnation.
Absolutely. It's a way to, I love to look at it. And this is one of the things I do with my clients. And I love that you mentioned mindset, because mindset is such a powerful component to our healing
Yes.
journeys. And one of the things, I share with my clients and that I've discovered myself is that our pain and our symptoms and they're our body's way to communicate with us. Like our
Yeah.
body send us
Mm-hmm.
a text message
Yeah.
or a letter by carrier pigeon and say, hey dude, I need some vegetables or whatever. Like,
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
to tell us hey, something is happening here. Like I'm not feeling my best. I can't function at my best. And it's sending these signals. And so when we get those signals by way of symptoms, it's an opportunity for us to look and discover what's happening. And I think where we sometimes get stuck is we go treat the symptom and stop looking. And then what happens is the treatment for some of our symptoms creates more symptoms.
Exactly.
And then we get more diagnoses. And then we're like, my life started falling apart when I went to get help for these things that were like, I'm worse. That's what happened with me, at least, with not paying attention to, not treating the whole body, not treating the whole life approach. That happened to me. I got progressively worse. And I was like, wait a second.
I'm
And
supposed to be better.
yeah, I'm supposed to be feeling better. What's happening? And so, and I've heard it said by one of my mentors, it's kind of like, it's like the body, if you keep ignoring its cries,
Mhm.
it's gonna bring you to your knees
Yeah.
where you can't ignore it anymore.
Yeah.
And normally it's just begging for a change and to be treated differently and to be, for that mindset shift of how can I take care of myself better
Yeah.
versus, I get the mentality of why me,
Hmm.
but if we live there, we're missing out on so much opportunity.
Exactly. Exactly. So oftentimes pain or all those symptoms, they're a warning light. Like if you're on your car, they're a warning light. And if it'd be the same thing as going and putting a piece of black tape over your warning light in your car. Did you fix the thing that's going on? No, you just covered it up. So then therefore that problem is still manifesting, going on and on and on. And so that's where if you go to someone that's just going to cover up a symptom, that underlying problem is still going to keep going and actually getting worse, because you feel better. So you think everything's better, but it's actually getting worse underneath the surface because you're not treating the root cause of it. And that's a big, big part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I could not agree more. So yeah. Well, I just have to say thank you so much for being here. This is so enlightening.
Yeah.
And I look forward to, I'm certain we're going to do more of these together, and I cannot wait to learn more
Yeah.
of your perspective and your approach and some of these other things that really support, um, bettering the quality of a thriving body and a functioning body and a body that feels good and is on the road to feeling better and better. So I'm looking forward to all of that. And would you just do me a favor and share with all of our listeners that would like to learn more about the Hayden Institute or that would like to find you, where they can find you?
Yeah, please. The Hayden Institute is our office, and it is located up in Jersey Village area in Texas. Otherwise, we also do remote phone consultations, things like that, even for people that are far away. And so how to find out more about us, just thehaydeninstitute.com, or we're on Facebook as well. So feel free to check out both of those locations, or if you have any specific questions for me, you can email me at amber@haydeninstitute.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Amber. I just so appreciate you being here with us and sharing all of this valuable information.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. All right, guys. So let us know your thoughts and let us know your questions. You can always, of course, if there's something you're interested in learning more about, as we always say, please reach out to me. You can find me at Kenny Rochelle Coaching on Facebook. Of course, we have our fabulous closed Endometriosis Nourish, Flourish, Thrive group. You are welcome to join if you are interested in more of these holistic protocols and practices and learning more about how to thrive with endometriosis. And you can always reach out directly to Kristen as well on any of the platforms. You can find her at www.endometriosis.me.com. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot the and me part. So let us know your thoughts. This particular episode came from one of you. You reached out and said, hey, what about cupping? So thank you so much for that. So send us those things you want to learn about. We are here for you. We love you. Have a wonderful rest of your week.